Well, Dirt Merchants Films has been steadily gaining a recognition for its distinctive narrative style. Could you describe the process of developing this style and how it differentiates your work from other production companies?
Yeah, we touched on it earlier, and I'll kind of bring that point home. We have a model that we use that is it's not a new model. It's not a new theory of screenwriting. It's not a new way to go. It goes back to biblical times. It's the hero's journey, where you have a hero who starts out with the problem, then he goes on this quest to solve his problem or her problem. And when I say his, her, most of our heroes are heroines, actually, but we call them heroes across the board. We've got probably, out of the 12 movies that we finished, Josh, probably 7 or 8 have a strong female that's leading the charge, right? Either in first or second place, including 𝐄𝐦𝐚𝐢𝐥, which we had to take care of a very evilicious villain in 𝐄𝐦𝐚𝐢𝐥, happened to be female. And you take
great villain, by the way.
What's that?
Great villain, by the way.
Yes, great villain. So you take this hero on this journey to see where the answer is for his or her issue. And these villains, these heroes, I should say, these heroes always start off flawed. They start off with an issue. They start off with something wrong. And you can take that same basic model and apply it to different scenarios. We apply it to the world of inspiration and transformation and the contrasting crime stories. Eventually, that hero must figure things out, and eventually that hero must come across a challenge that they have to deal with, and eventually the hero must come out on top. Although the hero may not come out on top in this movie, it might take a couple of movies for this hero to figure it out, and somebody else emerges as the hero. And that's where we separate ourselves. And it's so much easier, in my opinion, to tell these stories, because it's a series, because these characters jump from one movie to the next. You're actually looking at multiple heroes and multiple villains in every movie, almost without exception. And we give people bits and pieces of their heroic act or their evil acts in various movies, but we don't give too much away. We leave the meat and potatoes for the movies that are focused on the movie that's focused on their journey. And so we take this hero's journey, Josh, to the next level, and that's our unique style. And when our hero slays the dragon, they don't do it with special effects. They don't do it with a special sword that has a light, coming out of it. I forget what those things are, what those things are called. The lightsabers. They don't have those things. They don't have special, like, secret powers. They don't have the ability to go back in time and change the way things were so that things can work out a better way, right? And there's nothing wrong with those movies, but that's not what we do. We use the inspirational themes that we learn from the motivational masters and figure things out on our own. And that's why I love to go back in time. Another thing that we do very differently from most of these other franchises, we don't go way back. We go something back. We go back to the 70s, 80s, and 90s sometimes, and we tell a historical story from that time. But by doing it that way, we're able to eliminate all the electronics. We're able to eliminate the computers from the equation. We're able to eliminate the phones from the equations. You want to make a phone call? Pick up a phone at home or go to the phone booth. You can't pick up the phone while you're driving in these movies, right? So, and the later ones you can, but my point is, and even those early cell phones, you really couldn't hear much anyway. You had to wait till you got where you're going anyway to be able to talk to anyone. So get to the payphone, and by the time you get to that phone, or let's say you're at home and then somebody's on the phone, you got to wait for them to get off the phone, right? Or if you make a phone call and you get a busy signal, you got to call back. There's no leaving a message, right? There's no leaving a message. You have to get through. So in the process, Josh, of kind of making and having it be an effort to communicate, you can think things through more clearly versus just picking up a device and going. And sometimes when we pick up the device and go, it's a good idea. And sometimes when we pick up the device and go, it's not a good idea because you're not thinking things through. And so what we're able to do in these movies, for the most part, is allow these characters to work it out. And the audience is figuring it out also. And it's a cool ride when you're a fan of the inspirational, motivational world, because you see these characters utilizing the themes that we all learned and loved from our teachers in real life motion. And it's cool when there's a bunch of criminals around that are trying to foil their efforts. And it's also tremendous when we're able to incorporate all this great music to the theme, where if things get too intense, we can just play a nice ballad and sequence nicely into the next scene without missing a beat, but also without using any tricks of the trade. So to summarize, we've got true stories. We go back in time, and back in time means the music sounds rougher and raw. The cars are louder and more antique and more. You can almost feel the oil and gasoline smell through the screen with these cars, right? The old Chevelles and the Corvettes and the cars you could fix yourself, right? You ever try to fix your own car these days? Open up the hood and where do I start, right? You can't even figure out where the oil goes, right? And the battery's not even there. Where's the battery? Oh, the battery's in the trunk. Battery's in the trunk, right? So you go back in time, you have inspirational stories, true heroes, nasty villains, the hero's journey, but the hero's journey spread out into multiple movies, and the use of hard driving, usually powerful music, ballads that make you feel like you're in a dreamy state of affair. And then all of a sudden you realize before long, you're going to realize that you're in a movie and things still need to be worked out by these characters. So it ain't over yet. It's not time to sleep and have a dream just yet.
Love it. Love it. The concept of the new Dirt Merchants universe is undoubtedly ambitious. Can you share some insights about what prompted the inception of this universe and how it ties into the ethos of Dirt Merchants films?
Yeah, the universe concept has actually grown even in the past several months since we launched the platform. The concept has already grown into something bigger than just a movie universe. The universe concept, or the movie series concept, or the movie franchise concept is not something that's new. It's something that's been, I think James Bond was probably one of the first movies to be a franchise, right? And that was way back in the early 60s, going on 60 years ago that started, and it's still going today. I don't know what they're going to do since they killed off James Bond in the last movie. I was very upset. Sandra and I were both upset when James Bond died. I hate to break it to you guys, but so what? What's going on here? You can't kill James Bond. They're talking about, oh, they're going to bring in another James Bond. Well, you can't call it James Bond if James Bond is dead, right? My point is that this franchise idea is not new. It goes back to, and then really Star Trek was another really cool one, because they took the TV series and they made it into several movies, and then they made another series, and they made another series, and they made another series, and they just kept going, right? And that's been going since the 70s. And then the Harry Potter phenomenon was really something that we took to heart, and we modeled a lot of the things that we do around that series, because it was books, right? You can buy the books and then you watch the movies based on the books. Lord of the Rings is similar. They only made a few of those, but they're all big hits. And Rocky was such a great example of this franchise that started out with one writer, director, actor who was broke on his buttocks and was offered money, Josh, not to be in his own movie. I'm talking about Sylvester Stallone. That is a true story. Imagine if you're broke on your buttocks and somebody offers you money to not star in your own movie.
Yeah.
He held his principles. He made this movie, which became a classic at the time, low budget movie, gritty. you watch the original Rocky, you'll see where we started and how we wanted to make these gritty movies. And even Rocky 2 and 3 and 4, when they had more money, they still kept it. They kept it really down to earth. You know, when Rocky's punched, when Sylvester Stallone is punched in that movie, he's really punched. And when it came time to set the cameras after he was punched for a round of boxing by Carl Weathers, who's a mean dude, right? Carl Weathers is a mean and strong dude, and then he would go up to the top of the rafters with all bloody bloody and bruised and sweat, and go up and set the cameras way up high, and then come back down and do it again, right? That's Rocky, right? And that turned into several Rockies, and everyone made fun of the Rockies. Oh, there's another Rocky. Well, I'll tell you what. When Rocky Balboa came out, I said, that's got to be it. He's already old. He's an old Rocky. Right? And then you come in, you develop the next generation of characters. And what did Creed make? The Creed 3 made $1.5 billion. So just one movie. That doesn't include the merchandising and the ancillary markets and the other movies that are coming, because there's going to be more. These studios, they don't leave it alone. They're not going to leave it at 3. It's going to be something else. But if you notice, if you watched Creed 3, it's a very, very simple story arc. Very excellent movie. I'd recommend it. In fact, Creed 3 trailers is on the recommended list for Dirt Merchants trailers that we have on the platform. And so if you're into boxing and if you're into kind of the male testosterone type of movie, that one's really good, because it follows a hero's journey, and it follows the redemptive journey of Adonis Creed. And I don't want to give the movie away, but basically you're following a very simple story arc. But if you shoot it the right way, if you make it real, make it gritty, then it'll work. And it follows the same arc as the first Rocky. You have a boxer, washed up boxer, is down on his luck, down and out, gets kicked out of his own gym, and he's doing little beat up jobs for the mob, but he's this like not nice mobster, right? That doesn't want to hurt the guy too bad and has a conscience, right? So you root for him. Then he meets a girl, and then he gets an opportunity, and then boom, boy meets girl, then boy loses girl, boy gets girl. It's a very common theme. And eventually, what I loved about Rocky 1, if you haven't seen Rocky by now, I'm not. This is not spoiler for you. Rocky doesn't win the fight, right? Rocky doesn't win, and to me, usually the hero wins the battle, right? But he really did win the battle because he went all 15 rounds, right? So you can win without winning, and I think it made it by him not winning the fight. I think it was even more powerful than if he won the fight. And also it sets you up for what? The sequel. It sets you up for the sequel where he did win. And if you haven't seen 1 and 2, this is the 70s, man. Come on, get with it. Get to the later ones, all right? Go directly to Creed. Watch the old ones, go directly to Creed, because you're going to see the next level. So this idea of the movie franchise is not new. We're modeling a lot of these very successful franchises. But at the same time, now we're taking it even a step further and incorporating personal development, training and coaching, television shows, interviews, podcasts, shout outs, whatever, courses that are personal development related, but also tie into the themes that we discuss in these movies. And we've made 12 movies. And if you figure out that these characters, there's probably a couple 3 main characters in the movies, and they're each bringing on like a couple of characteristics from the personal development teachings. And we talk about personal development, we're not just talking, Josh, about Tony Robbins or Tom Hopkins or even Ty Lopez or some of the modern guys, David Goggins, right? We're talking about the philosophy of the ages. We're talking about biblical references, Old Testament, Quran, Tao Te Ching, and the one from India, which I can never pronounce, the Bhagavad Gita, right? I can never pronounce that one, right? We're talking about New Testament. We're talking about the principles of success that have been taught to us by these, I don't mean to leave Buddha out, that have been brought to us by these spiritual masters before the personal development guys came aboard, before Napoleon Hill, and before Norman Vincent Peale, and before Robert Schuller, and the guys that brought it to us in the 2000s. Yeah, I'm naming names. It's okay to name names, right? So you can see these characters applying these principles in these movies, and sometimes it's a little bit corny, but it's hard to be heroic and to be majestic without being a little bit corny, right? But
Right.
we mask it a little bit. We mask the corniness, not because corny is bad, but because we want people to love it. We want them to say, wow, this is cool. I can relate to that character. So if you figure that each of these movies has a couple, 3 characters applying a couple, 3 different disciplines, you got dozens of things to talk about in the courses that we're offering and the shows that we're offering. And it makes this something that is beyond what we even imagined when we started, and also takes it something beyond these traditional movie franchises that they don't do any of that, and they can't do any of that. And I'll tell you why they can't do any of that. Josh and I were talking about, you and I were talking about this the other day, that there's no other company that can teach life lessons of the dirt merchants than us. We're the ones that can do it. So we're in our own place. But even when you're in your own place, you're your own category killer, which is what we have. We're in 2 massive industries that converge with the dirt merchants universe, Josh. We have the personal development industry, and we have the movie franchise industry. I think that's what separates us, and it's how we're applying this movie franchise concept and taking it even a step further.
Love it.